Thank you, Enrico, and thanks to all of you for joining us here for this session. The session called The Rise and Rise of Software-Defined Storage and Hyper-Converged. And more to define this more, okay, what storage platform should I choose, why, and where can I find the information, what's a good start? Just to introduce myself, in short, my name is Herman Rutten. I'm a solution architect as well as a senior advisory consultant for PQR. PQR is a cloud and system integrator based in the Netherlands. I've been into IT more over 15 years. And in 2001, I was confronted with something called centralized storage. Back in these days, those were the HP XP platforms. And since then, I've, well, kind of stuck with storage all the way through. So that's why I have a great affinity for the subject. Centralized storage is still the mainstream and still like the dominant species in the storage world. But the last 5 years or so, we have another architecture, the distributed architecture, coming on strong, and it's that what we are going to talk about today. Just a quick recap of what we are talking about. Software-defined storage and hyper-converged are, well, like it's called, they're two sides of the same coin. They have very many similarities. Both are based on storage software running on commodity x86 hardware, server hardware, and are using local storage devices in an intelligent manner. The storage software that's installed on each of these servers is combining these into one shared storage pool, which you can reach from an end user and systems perspective with a block, a file, or a object protocol. The differences, I've highlighted the most evident ones. The software-defined storage is the most flexible, whereas the hyper-converged is more of a turnkey delivery-focused initiative. So appliances versus a software-only venture that you can adopt. Okay, where are these, both of these platforms focusing on? Well, the most dominant one is the hypervisor market today for virtual server and or desktop environments. A little bit more focused is the big data center. Those are mostly other platforms that are focusing on that. And there are also some generic platforms that are trying to do it all. Today we're going to focus on the hypervisor market because that's the most commercially valid one and the most general interesting. Well, if you look at the rise of the SDS and HCI market, it starts really, really early with Left Hand and a pivot already venturing it in 2007, 2008 with companies who rose to the occasion against the turn of the century. There's a lot to choose from these days. If you look at it, these companies starting when they come up, where they start and they're going to investigate what they can do, it usually takes up to 2 to 3 years until they present their first product to the market. In 2016, I think, I don't know if it's actually out yet, we got Storage Spaces Direct from Microsoft coming on as well. But there's a lot to choose from, and that's because this topic, the software-defined storage and hyper-converged market is very hyped. Everyone these days calls itself software-defined or either hyper-converged. And what to choose from. The marketing buzz is very popular, so how can I, from a customer's perspective, make the right choice? Well, that's where the WhatMatrix comes in. The WhatMatrix is a community initiative You probably all look at the Magic Quadrants from Gartner, or read Forrester. There was a Q3 report about Hyper-Converged. But all of these are a very high overview, give you a high overview picture of the market. Gartner is more focused on the company itself and if it can execute, if it is large, if it can survive. Whereas Forrester is more technical focused, but it highlights some areas and it gives percentages, but you don't really know what a platform can and can't do, and also not really how they compare to each other. WhatMatrix is a community initiative, so it's not vendor driven. It's driven by individuals like myself who are very experienced in the area, in these areas, and try to give something back to the people. It's a comparison site, which we will highlight in a live demo. And the most important properties are it's always online. What that means is that you can go to it, it's free, you don't have to register, you can just go and look at all these comparisons that are out there. It's not only SDS, HCI, it's also about other hot topics in the industry today, like the cloud management platforms, like disaster recovery, like backup and restore, and there's lots more. Always online always also means that because it's an online community, we can keep it updated. You must have read some white papers and also even the Magic Quadrants and the Q reports from Forrester are, when they come out, a month later they are old. So then you say, okay, what can I do with it? We try to keep this updated to the latest versions of all these products. Only the GA features are mentioned here because we don't like future selling. So we try to only show you the features that are really there when you're going to buy the product. So already said, it's free and agnostic. We try to be as objective as possible. That means we are really talking to all of these vendors. We also have them review our content. We don't always agree on everything, and also not on the scoring part that we do, but to an extent of 90–95%, we mostly agree on what's on there. So we try to involve the vendors as much as possible and to have some good open discussions with them. We also try to involve the public. If you visit the site, then you can also leave your feedback behind if you think something is wrong or something should be added. All feedback is welcome, and we look at everything that we can do. The interesting part of this being agnostic as well is that there's room for the bigger companies, but there's also room for the smaller companies, the challengers. We're already talking to one of them, Storepool, who wants to join and wants to be listed here. So we're going to work with them to also include them in the comparison. Again, it's community sourced, so everyone who thinks he has good expertise in some area can drop an ID and say, okay, I know something about this area, it's very interesting, and he can talk to us, to the WhatMatrix people, and say, okay, let's do this. So that we are open to every kind of suggestion there. Back to the SDS HCI front. Today we have 8 vendors who are included, who you can compare on a one-to-one basis. At the bottom you see some of the other content that's readily available as well in other comparisons. But today, again, we focus on this aspect of the SDS HCI. So we'll try to do a deep dive now by showing you what the platform is capable of. So a live demo is probably the best way to do that. Let's see. Okay, this is our main page, and there you can select the comparison that you want to see. and I'm just going straight away to the SDS HCI one bit. Okay, then you get the main page. Okay, if you get here, then as you can see, randomly it's filled with information already. But let's be more focused. We'd like to have exactly, let's say, we want to compare Nutanix. And as you can see, the 4.7 version is the latest version that's available. But as you might know, Nutanix has packages of the software, Starter Edition, Pro Edition, Ultimate Edition. We'll just choose the Ultimate Edition. Well, Simplicity is a good second one that we want to compare it with. Latest version out is 3.5.2. 3.5.3 has been announced, but it's not GA, so it's not up on the site yet. And let's compare it to like VMware, vSAN, why not? As you can see, you can choose from the 8 vendors that we just mentioned. And let's choose the Enterprise Edition, which is also the edition with the most functionality in it. As you can readily see, is that you get a matrix score. The maximum score is if you would have all the features in place and fully powered, so that these are good options. Well, all of them have some gaps there. And as you can see, they are really close in this regard. So this is the overall score that they have. The scoring is at the left side. Fully supported gets 2 points. Some limitations gets 1. Not supported or very, very limited supported gets no points. Now you can do a deep dive by sliding down to see, okay, you can see the information, the overall general information that there is. You can also see all of these versions that have already come out. So you'll see how frequently a new version is coming out. You can also see some general information like when it was founded, how many customers there are, if we know it, and if it's publicly available information, we will highlight it. So then we...
Can I do a comparison?
Yeah. A question.
Ron and Rico.
Wait 1 second, because we have this small problem here.
Okay.
Yeah?
It's loud enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I do a comparison between the different versions of the software?
Not yet. We've been asked that exact question. Okay, can I scroll back and look, okay, what did 4.6 do in Nutanix's case versus 4.7? No, what we're doing at the moment is highlight which features have been renewed or have been enhanced. There's a new sticker on there, but we are looking into maintaining at least the previous version and the current version, so you can even put those two against each other. Okay, what was it like then before, and what is it now? So that's something we are working on. Perhaps we'll do backtrack because we have all the information from the 4.6 version still available, but we have to upload it and see where we can fill in. If there are new features, how are you going to fill that in the old version, etc. But we are looking into that.
Can I just
Yeah.
follow on that? I mean, if we're asking questions anyway.
All right.
So, can I also search based on the features that I want? Because now we're just comparing companies, but I would like to be able to just say, right, I need this feature or that feature. I'm not interested in feature X, Y, Z.
Yes, we're calling that use cases. And the use cases is something that we're working on as well in the background. Because, we completely understand that if you're focused on some areas and you find only those areas very interesting or very important to your case, then we would like you to be able to only select those and not get all the, well, there's almost 90 features or so in here, and scroll all the way down, so you get a selection of that, a subset. So we're working on that. I don't know when it will be available. It takes also some testing, etc., and how to do it and how to make it really good for a customer experience point of view. So, but it's a good point. It's also been mentioned before, so that's one of the enhancements we are really seriously looking into, to providing, yeah. Okay, just to go back, we don't mention any pricing, by the way. We might mention pricing models, how it is priced, if it's a subscription or whether you should just buy it per node. And that's because street prices are very difficult because it usually changes on a per use case basis and who the customer is and how the competition is, etc. So we don't do that. What we also are doing is showing you the evaluation methods. Can you just download it and a public version and go test yourself, or do you need to do a POC? Or can you go online into a lab kind of environment and test it like that? So we have this and that. And then come some of the things like the overall architecture. What's very important these days is, okay, can I hook up bare metal platforms as well as the virtual hypervisors or not? If I have the hypervisors in, what are supported and what versions are supported, because these change as well over time. And then you can see also the relative scores, because if you, like you can see with Nutanix, 3 platforms are supported, so it's green. The other one supports 2, that's a limitation, and 1 is very limited, so that's why in this case it scores no points. Let's see.
Can I just quickly ask something else?
Yes.
If we're on the subject anyway. You mentioned something about the weighing of the thing. One of the things I always look at is actually the quality of documentation. Because to be honest, most vendors make terrible, terrible, crappy documentation, or products that have no documentation whatsoever. Is that part of your comparison as well?
Well, we initially focused more on the management and supporting aspects, which is really at the bottom left. So we are looking at ease of deployment. We look at how's the integration, is the management easy, is it easily integrated also in a dashboard, etc., etc. The documentation part, which is it's a valid point, I think. We should be able to look into that. No, it's not in there as of yet. But if more people find it a very important aspect, then of course we will add it as well to the management aspect, the management area. Well, there's also things like density, the server vendor models being supported. What can we do with it also from a GPU's perspective, for example? What can I scale up and scale out in the solution? Can I scale up at all, or can I only scale out? If I can scale up and scale out, what can I scale up and how far can I go? Of course, the small scale environments, the remote, etc. Are these supported? Sorry. So let's see. Okay. All right. Here we are again. Also, the protocols are important. Things like, well, I'll scroll down a bit, like, for instance, data protection, data availability is important. What kind of measures have been taken to prevent us from losing data? Very important these days as well. You can look at the disk failures, the node failures, block failures, rack failures. These are all kind of things. Is data corruption detected, and is there a self-healing mechanism in place? point-in-time things like snapshots, but also backups can be very important. There are very many platforms that don't do the backup themselves. Some of them do, most of them don't. Then you have to use an external solution to use as an add-on. But if you have it in place, what's the frequency, what's the restore granularity, what's the restore ease of use? Also remote replication is important. Can I do stretch clustering? Well, then you have data services like, deduplication, compression. When I add a node or remove a node, is data rebalanced automatically or not? Well, there's all sorts of things around security and encryption. Is QoS something that's in place or not? And then, of course, the management aspect, how easy is that? We already covered some of that. Now, if I wanted to know, I wanted to have a summary of what I've just looked at, then you can create a report. And then you see already the scores, the overall scores of each of the platforms. And what's interesting, for example, is here, is what is scored on the different areas. So you have an overall highlight per area. Okay, what does one platform excel in, and where are there the most gaps? So you can do that as well. At the time, you can only get 3 platforms in a report. Perhaps in the future, we'll try to do more, so you can get an overall comparison of more than these platforms. So, but this is a nice addition. So the reporting feature also allows you to get it into a PDF and get it across your company, for instance. So that's a nice aspect, we think, as well. So I think this highlights the most interesting things. And like I said, we are continuously looking of improvising, of enhancing the site, as well as adding new platforms. In our opinion, this is probably the most comprehensive solution there is to date. And we try, like I said, we keep it updated as new versions come along, so you always have an updated perspective on what's out there and what these platforms can and cannot do.
What's the criteria for fitness between parties?
Well, of course, the main area is that they are really software-defined storage or hyper-converged, that they fit in this area. But like I said, if it's either a small company or a large company, if they're willing to work with us and invest some time and effort to get into the discussions with us and to get these all filled and that this information is very accurate, we are agnostic, so we're happy to discuss it. So like with Storepool, for instance, it's an upcomer, but it's one that we are going to follow up on this. So there's really nothing really immediate that can disqualify you. So that's the okay part, so, yeah. Any other questions still?
Well, I thought I have another one if nobody else wants to ask anything. What is, in your opinion, the features that turn out to be the most significant weighing factors in any decisions for either a POC or actually buying some of this stuff?
It's from my own experience in the field, for instance, flexibility is something that is very important. If you look at the hyper-converged platforms where you have a 2U unit with 4 nodes in them with little or no scale-up possibilities, then you can only scale one way, linearly with everything, compute and storage, and that's it. So if you only need storage, which is 30 to 40% the case, then these wouldn't be a good fit because these are too restrictive in nature. So that's one of the things. The other thing that we come across is the ability to scale out in very small steps or in big steps. And again, flexibility is also very important there. And what we're seeing is that some of these, the customers are looking to keep in their server platforms, for instance. They have a lot of experience with like Dell or like some other ones, and they're used to it. They have a good relationship there, so there's also some focus there. But also data protection is very important because we tend to trust these centralized platforms these days, and on that regard, these things work differently. They have everything in software. So POCing this is also an important aspect, so the data availability side of things, and to really seeing that it does what it says that it does. So, okay.
That's actually a bit in line with what I was wondering as well. Is there feedback on how it actually works? I mean, what I see here is a list of this is on the tin, this is what it should do. But is there any feedback from real life experience in there, how things work?
Yeah, we try to do that as well. We'd like also feedback from the users out there, because you cannot possibly do everything with all platforms. But we have experienced guys who are working on some of these platforms. The most difficult aspect, of course, is performance, because that's one aspect that you don't find a lot of information on, and it can even, if you have very different workloads than someone else, then you could have a different experience on that regard. So on the performance bit, you'll find the least information. So we keep out of the discussion for now whether it's better to have data locality or not to have data locality in place, which one is better and more scalable. So that's something that's up for discussion still. We mentioned this explicitly in the information bar as well, how we view this, or why we stay neutral on that regard. But yeah, so some things are easier to have a view on than others. Yeah, but we try to use that information as well, if available.
Maybe just also involved in the community point of view of WhatMatrix. So one of the things. Hi, thanks. I'm also involved in the community around WhatMatrix. So just to point out that in any of these features, when you go into the details, it does actually facilitate giving feedback. So if you're using it and you go in and you see a particular feature, it's given more details on it, there's a feedback button that you just press if you've got any other experiences or other opinions, you think something that's been posted isn't correct. So the whole idea is that it's sort of community curated as well, that's taking that feedback. It's ultimately down to the consultant that's running that category to accept that or not, but it is trying to sort of promote getting crowdsourced sort of feedback on it, and all of that adds to kind of the weight of it.
Do you have a way to stop like people that work at Nutanix and what have you? No, seriously.
No, and that's why I'm saying it goes back to the consultant. Ultimately, it's curated, so it's not that it's like it automatically gets published. Right. It's more a lowering the kind of barrier to getting feedback, and so by going into a particular feature, it just immediately focuses it down into an area of context that says, you're saying for this feature, here are the details. Actually, what we've found is that it's slightly different, and it's another way of getting kind of granular feedback. But absolutely, it's not the case, and we've seen that in other platforms where they're not curated, that it can easily be gamed, right? That people just give feedback or give artificial ratings and things like that.
Yes. Okay. Time's up, I think. Oh, one question? All right. Go ahead.
That would be great if you could also give a specific rate per criteria or per factor, because for some companies, some of these factors are more important than the other ones. Do you plan to add that enhancement?
Yeah, that's also difficult, but it's something that's on the table, let's say. There's something else on the table as well, like if some vendor really excels in something and it rises to the occasion more than the other ones, is 2 then the developed score, or should there be some sort of a star rating or something to really highlight that somewhere so that you can see, okay, they're especially good in this area?
I mean, the end user can give just factors, a weight per factor,
okay,
so that they can see the result depending on their own use case. So because here I see that all the factors have the same weight.
Yeah, that's true.
But for some end users,
yeah. So. It's the same as selecting the use cases. I think that's another way of implementing it, that you can also give a weight to everything. So that's something that's very good. Thank you for that feedback. All right. One more question. So
maybe the final one then.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I think it's very handy to have some sort of starting point with the feature, so that you get ahead of it instead of investing a lot of time to investigate. But also, I think it's worth to mention that you mentioned that you work with central storage
as well.
Yeah. So that for a long time that was the general purpose because of virtualization. Mm-hmm. I see this Hyper-Converged as the new standard, but there are also a lot of use cases that are really not a good way to use that. For instance, if you use a lot of big CIF shares, it's crap to get this on a Hyper-Converged environment.
Yeah.
So I saw some things about interoperability features, but there's only like 2 points in the whole equation. So maybe it's also a way of, if this is the new general purpose workload, and you start with this, in what way this does not facilitate the other things. So you always need to have incorporation and interoperability with other stuff, because you still need special solutions which does not fit this platform. Maybe, as you explained about the company, it's good to highlight this in the solution as well.
Okay.
So not as a feature set, but just say from, okay, for Nutanix, it's not a good idea to use CIF shares because it's silly to have a lot of CIF shares on a big, expensive environment. And Nutanix will disagree with you because they say you can use our platform for everything. But I think then you're really differentiating yourself, because then you're going against them, because you can say, no, we don't. So get an opinion where you should not use it and elaborate on that.
Yeah. I've actually been thinking along of those lines, but thinking about how to implement it. So it's something that is on my to-do list, because I understand your question perfectly. So we are going to address this.